Well, we're doing something a little bit different here because it's midterm week, and it's certainly something you won't see on cable news or in legacy media ever. Ryan, what's your point today?
Well, we were going to talk about what we got wrong today. I looked through all of my different forecast predictions, couldn't find anything, so gonna hand it over to you. No, seriously. So I'll start with Pennsylvania here. I think the mistake here was A, not trusting my gut, but also B, having a conflicted gut after the debate. I always thought coming out of the primary that Fetterman was going to annihilate Dr. Oz. Like you spend any time in Pennsylvania, the idea that any part of that state is Dr. Oz country, whether it's Philadelphia, the Philadelphia suburbs, all the area in between there, Pittsburgh or the Pittsburgh suburbs, Northeast Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley, none of it. It's not. Dr. Oz, he hasn't been to most of these places. Watching him try to sing "Fly Eagles Fly" during the debate was just absolutely hilarious. He sang only the first line and he even botched that. So my gut was saying, like, this guy doesn't have a chance. At the same time, there were two things working against that. One was the tracking polls, hearing privately from people on both sides who were seeing the tracking polls just after the debate moving so quickly and strongly away from Fetterman. And then my gut at watching the debate, wondering and then looking at a couple of focus groups with people who said, I don't think he's qualified to be a senator anymore, and then extrapolating that out from there. Whereas, talking to everybody in my family, both Republican and Democrat and independents, nothing about the debate changed their mind. The independents who were leaning Democratic were like, yeah, that was like ridiculous, but I don't like Oz. I'm voting for Fetterman. And I should have gone with that. Should have gone with my gut on that one, because the fundamentals of Fetterman ended up prevailing there. Wisconsin, like a lot of pundits and operatives here in Washington, we have stopped listening to Wisconsin polls. They bungled it so badly in 2016 and bungled again so badly in 2020 and they bungled it so badly in the Democratic direction. In other words, they say Hillary Clinton was going to win by 17 or something like that. They had Biden up by huge numbers. Hillary lost barely in Wisconsin, and then Biden won barely in Wisconsin. So they're wildly off. Feingold was well ahead, although the polls were narrowing in that race against Ron Johnson 6 years ago. And so even though the polls were saying that this was within the margin of error, I just didn't believe those polls. So I think that was, and I think a lot of operatives in Washington didn't, and that's why Democrats didn't spend more, although that was still idiotic, because even if they don't believe those polls, the polls in Florida where they spent $70+ million on Val Demings were much worse. So it's kind of inscrutable why they ended up making that decision. And some of that is grassroots just sending money to Val Demings because they hate Marco Rubio more than they hate Ron Johnson, because I guess Ron Johnson didn't run for president. Anyway, so what do we got? New Hampshire. I think with New Hampshire, so I thought that toward the end that this would be a very, very close race. Thinking that a Senate election is going to be very close in New Hampshire doesn't take a genius, because they've all recently been decided by just a couple thousand votes. Hassan ended up blowing out Don Bolduc, who was this kind of MAGA retired general who both Democrats and kind of the MAGA crowd had boosted to the nomination over a more normie kind of New Hampshire-friendly Democrat. I think one of the things that I missed or forgot about New Hampshire is how much it's changing. Like, we shouldn't get stuck in our ideas about a state. New Hampshire, it's obviously a live free or die state. It's going to have that, forever. You had this big influx of libertarians, which influenced its political culture. But over the last couple of years, New Hampshire has been the fastest growing state in New England, one of the fastest growing states in the country. And those are people that are coming from Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and they're bringing their politics with them. Couple that with the nationalization of our political climate, and New Hampshire winds up looking much more like a typical, well-educated, college-educated state, rather than the kind of anomalous New Hampshire, New England state that it has been in the past. And so I think that actually played a significant role. And so Hassan was able to lean into that a lot more comfortably. Let's do and a couple victory laps. Let's see. Also, I didn't think that they were going to be in contention for the House. Although
What about Kentucky?
And this can be, I'll do it, yeah. This could be our transition into victory laps. I interviewed Tom Bonnier of Target Smart on my podcast Deconstructed, and continued following his analysis throughout the campaign. He was the kind of the most optimistic Democrat, and because I was taking in so much of his, I think I was one of the least pessimistic on the left, because he kept saying, look, there is a secret abortion rights voter, and youth vote is going to surge. And he was looking at what Target Smart is they take voter registration data, they take voting data, and they couple it with a bunch of consumer data and other, one of these massively sophisticated operations that knows way more about you than you'd like to know. And so then they forecast and model that out around the country. And they kept saying, look, our models and our forecasts here, based on actual actions by people, including voter registrations, early voting requests, and ballots turned in, do not match what you're seeing in the polls here. And here is why. And they had a theory of the case. And so going in, I was giving it maybe a third, and I talked about this on my little Substack chat, that no, if Democrats are going to do well tonight, it's because there's this secret abortion voter. And I was giving that a lot more credence, I think, than a lot of other pundits were, which brings me into the other victory lap, which is Kentucky. I was pretty sure that Kentucky voters would side with abortion rights, which for people in Louisville, that actually might not have been that tough of a call. But I think for national reporters, they might have been pretty surprised at how robust that support was for abortion rights in a place like Kentucky, because there's such stereotypes around voters in Kentucky.
Yeah. This is super interesting. I mean, I think there's...
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.